I grew up living with my grandma until the age of 10. She used to joke about dying soon, and that made me curious about death. I would fall asleep every night, thinking what happens after death. One day I come to this conclusion that our bodies disappear, but our souls stay in a dark universe that nothing else exists. Thus ended my first exploration to death. When you're walking on the streets, you see that the people are so happy with their lives, they don't have the time to think about death. Or maybe they just don't care. Does he care? Does he? Or him? Or maybe this little girl cares. Or this guy. But why? Why do we need to think about death? I guess it's because we don't have the right to choose to be born, but we have the right to choose when to die. Or do we? Should we have the right to choose when to die? I'm pro-choice on this issue, but the whole idea could be so confusing, with religion and belief and hope. And it's life we're talking about. The most precious thing and the only thing we possess. There was this Dr. Jack Kevorkian, aka Dr. Death. He showed a video of him assisting suicide for a patient named Tom York on 60 Minutes, and was in prison for assisting more than 130 suicides. He might be doing great things for some patients, while many others feel him as a murderer.
I was shocked, almost speechless, as we watched the arguments against it is that we can do better than kill people. We can do better with end-of-life care.
I'm so grateful to know that someone would relieve him of his suffering. I don't consider it murder. I consider it humane. I consider it the way things should be.
Let's think of this starting from the most basic part. What if someone you know is in deep coma? How do you view this person? Is he still the friend you used to have? Is he still a human being?
I see them as alive, but obviously they can't do anything, so it's kind of like in this state between like life and death.
Most people in a coma kind of like you're dreaming the whole time. Like you can react to things outside of you, but most of the time you're either just reacting to your own subconscious thoughts or to things that may be happening in your head, but you can't really react appropriately to what people around you are saying. Like when you do have reactions, they're kind of more reflexes and not. So in that sense, I think you are still a person, but not in the same sense as like an actual person. You know, as you're in more and more of a deep coma state, you lose kind of that being a person, and you end up just being just kind of a shell of a body.
I mean, personally, if I was in a coma and things were looking grim for me to come out of it, I mean, I almost think it would be easier for everyone else if they just said, yeah, it's time to, let them go.
It's the same case with cancer. When you're told you're on the final stage of cancer and only have 3 months left, you may want to enjoy the time with your family or friends instead of receiving treatment. When the doctor agreed, he's basically giving you the permission for a suicide, and people don't have a problem with it. Then what's so troubling with the idea of doctor-assisted suicide for patients suffering from another disease?
I mean, I don't think anyone should have the say to kill someone, but if it's their choice, if they're terminally ill and they just don't want to deal with life anymore, I'd personally never be able to do that decision.
I normally think from a deontological perspective, where I think through human rights and Lockean beliefs of life, and I think that is ultimately up to the person if they have true cognitive awareness to determine whether they have the right to live or not. And it is kind of the job of those around in society to kind of hold people accountable and to kind of understand what the situation is for each individual. But in the end, I think it's up to the individual themselves to make the final say.
If a person is no longer conscious and has no chance of recovery and has no cortical input, then and say the patient has given prior consent to ending their lives if they have such a poor quality of life and prognosis, then I would say Yes.
There needs to be guidelines. People need to wait a certain amount of time. You can't just go into a doctor and say, kill me today. That's like not appropriate. But I do think there are a lot of instances in which it is an appropriate decision.
Well, I think it should be allowed. I think people should be allowed to choose time and place that they want to die, and whether they're in pain or not. I mean, I think it should absolutely be a person's choice.
But all these pro-choice people are college students, well-educated, living in a college town. I wonder what happens after a decade when we're working and have children of our own. Will opinions change? Will the law change? In the end, we do have to think about death, for the people suffering, for our own rights.